Lost in the fog. Every morning, the valley would be blanketed in thick, ghostly fog, a silent sea of gray that rolled in just before dawn and didn't recede until the sun was high overhead. The villagers had grown used to its daily arrival, but none dared venture into it. They called it the Vale of Shadows, for those who wandered too far rarely returned. Tales of lost souls, strange whispers, and eerie lights lingered in the villagers' hushed stories. But Eva was drawn to mysteries, especially the ones her grandmother used to tell by the fire. One cold morning, unable to sleep, Eva stepped outside just as the first shreds of fog crept into her backyard. Her breath hung in the air, mingling with the mist, and she took a hesitant step forward. Suddenly, through the swirling haze, she spotted something, a faint, flickering light. It was unlike any lantern or torch she'd ever seen, wavering as if it were floating, dancing just on the edge of visibility. Against her better judgment, Eva felt an overwhelming urge to follow it. She glanced back at her sleeping village and whispered to herself, just a little closer. With each step into the fog, the world behind her faded, swallowed up by the thick, silent mist. The light ahead seemed to lead her deeper, illuminating strange shapes in the fog, barely their silhouettes that twisted and shifted, disappearing when she tried to focus on them. She shivered but pressed on, her curiosity mingling with unease. As she walked, the fog grew denser, pressing against her from all sides. A strange sound reached her ears, a soft humming, a song, ancient and sad, that seemed to echo from nowhere and everywhere at once. She froze, her heart pounding, but the light continued to flicker ahead, waiting for her. Eva, the voice was a whisper, so soft she thought she imagined it. She spun around, but the fog was thick, swallowing her surroundings. Then she heard it again, clearer this time. Eva. Her heart skipped. Who's there? She called, her voice swallowed by the fog. Ahead, the light grew brighter, and through the mist, a figure began to take shape, a young woman in an old-fashioned gown, her face hauntingly familiar. It was her grandmother, just as she had looked in the faded photos at home. Grandmother? Eva whispered, tears stinging her eyes. The figure nodded, her face sorrowful. Why did you come, child? This place isn't safe. I saw the lights, and I missed you, Eva murmured, unable to look away. Her grandmother's face softened, and she reached out a ghostly hand. Eva felt a chill as their hands touched. Eva, the fog is a gate. It holds the past, the lost, and the forgotten. You must go back before you lose yourself in its depths. Suddenly, the mist began to swirl, becoming thicker and darker, like a storm building around them. The light faded, and her grandmother's figure started to dissolve. Run, Eva, her grandmother's voice echoed. Terrified, Eva turned and stumbled back the way she came, her hands outstretched in the blinding fog. Her heart pounded as strange voices whispered around her, fragments of old stories, forgotten memories, each one tugging at her, urging her to stay. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she burst out of the fog into the bright morning light. She turned, expecting to see the valley stretching behind her, but the fog had already begun to retreat, shrinking back down to the valley, leaving no trace of the journey she had just taken. For a long time, Eva stood in silence, her mind racing with the memory of her grandmother's voice. She knew now why people feared the fog. It was a doorway, not only to the unknown but to those things that were meant to remain in the past. From that day on, Eva stayed clear of the valley when the mist came, but every now and then, she would catch a flicker of light in the distance, and she'd smile, feeling her grandmother's presence watching over her, a reminder of the mysteries that lived just beyond the veil.